Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason C. Charles, Placement Officer at the COSTAATT Career Management Services Unit. Today is a good day as we are here as part of the Career Management Services Thrust to ensure career preparedness, job readiness, and job resilience for our students. We at the Career Management Services Unit are here to continuously assist you with all your career management needs, which include but are not limited to career advisement, resume writing and development services, work study and student ambassador program, interview prep, job search strategies, internship prep, job vacancy and opportunity posts. We also invite you to like our Facebook page, which is Career Management Services COSTAATT, for more announcements, vacancies, and tips. Today, we are fortunate to have our presenter, Ms. Lisa Ramjatan, to deliver our workshop on interview skills and tips. Ms. Ramjatan is an HR manager with the Hugh Wooden Law School. Prior to joining this team, she was a human resource team lead for Massey Distribution. As a team lead, she was responsible for human resource services for all sites in Trinidad and Tobago, including recruitment, selection, training and development, employee engagement, industrial relations, compensation and benefits, and performance management. In addition to her core function, she led the community enhancement program of the company during her tenure and also provided training interventions for the sister company in Guyana. She's also worked with Scotiabank as the assistant manager, recruitment and selection, and was responsible for branches in Guyana and Trinidad. During her tenure at Scotiabank, there were many consolidation projects for the bank regionally. She was also part of faculty, adjunct faculty at COSTAATT from 2003 to 2014, and at the University of the West Indies from 2005 to 2018. She holds a master's in human resource management with the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business, and is the holder of a Bachelor's of Science degree and a Bachelor of Laws degree with the University of the West Indies. She's a senior certified practitioner with the Society of Human Resource Management in the USA and a certified change management specialist with ProSci in Canada. She's passionate about development and coaching young professionals, and she's a mother of one, and her favorite sport is cricket. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish now to invite Ms. Ramjatan, who, mind you, let me tell you, was my classmate in UWI 20 years ago, to deliver the presentation on interview tips and skills. Ms. Ramjatan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jason. I thought we agreed not to say how many years ago. I could just simply say a few years ago. Okay, thank you. Welcome to all the participants, students of COSTAATT. Thank you, Jason, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to share some tips and skills for interviews. Jason, one question, I don't know if you have it in front of you. These students are final year students of it's a mixture, wasn't it?
It's a general mix of students.
Okay, so we have some part-time, full-time and things like that, right?
Yes. Okay,
great. So I don't know how to pose the rest of the presentation. All right, so basically, as Jason said, we will have questions at the end, and it's just that there's a lot of material I want to cover. We only have an hour, so please be patient with us and put your questions to the end. I know some questions may be burning that you may want to ask, but please just keep it to the end so we kind of manage how we run the session. So we're going to start. Right. So this session basically is going to be divided into 3 areas. We're going to look at what you do before the interview, during the interview, and after the interview. So normally people might tell me, but no, this is interview tips. It's just for when I attend an interview. But once you're looking for a job, be sure to note that from the time you put your number on your resume, it becomes part of you. It becomes the interview really starts when you get that call. So that's why I saw it necessary to look at before, during, and after. So going straight into it, you get the call. Always remember to answer in a professional manner. Many times we'll be calling candidates and you hear a very unprofessional response here or morning. So we are looking for a job, so always be ready and prepared. You never know. Just know that every call that comes into your cell phone is a prospective company or person looking for you to hire you. So once you get the call, make sure and write the information down. Make sure always have pen and paper or some form of something to note or have something to take the important information down, such as the location of the interview, the mode of the interview. Now with COVID-19, a lot of companies are doing online interviews. So please note that whether it's face-to-face or online, not on the day we realize, wait, it's face-to-face and you're rushing to get to the particular location for the interview. Get the proper direction for the interview, where the location, landmarks, that kind of thing. Get the time right. Sometimes you think you hear 10 o'clock and the person really said 1 o'clock. Make sure and note the time correctly. The name of the person who would have called you, always try to take the name of the person, because sometimes we go to these big buildings and you're not sure which floor it is. What is the name of the person? That will always help you on the day. And then also who you should ask for the day on the day of the interview. Many times the person calling and the person who is actually responsible for escorting the persons to the interview and conducting the interview, they are usually different persons. So make sure you have that information, because some companies outsource recruitment. So you may have a person calling you who's not even working at the company. So that's why you need to make sure you have this type of information before the actual interview. Other things to note is to keep an even tone and thank the person for calling. Try to remain very calm and always remember to be polite. Repeat the information just to confirm the details, say, so on Frederick Street, 9 o'clock on the 15th of November, and that kind of information, and who you're asking and where you're coming to and all those things. Avoid giving a relative. So this is just on the side before the interview too. Sometimes I find that people have, they put numbers on your resume, that is your friend or family member. Because you're looking for a job, try to have your own cell phone, because sometimes you have elderly parents or relatives and they may not be able to take a message properly. And therefore, you may lose out on the opportunity. So no matter how cheap the phone is, try to get secure phone, so that, and always have it on you, and at least have a voicemail on, so you can at least return calls. All right, some of the things you do not want to do on a call: ask the person to call you back unless it's absolutely necessary. So I know sometimes people are maybe offshore or at a location on the job sometimes, or and they may not be able to take the details and all those things that I mentioned before. So just kind of make sure the microphones are muted, so to avoid feedback. So ask the person to call you back unless it is absolutely, do not ask the person to call you back unless it's absolutely necessary. And if it's necessary, try to return the call within the day. Sometimes we find that, especially for entry-level jobs, and we are recruiting for a number of positions, sometimes we only have like 6 slots. And usually if I call 6 or 8 persons, and if you call me back, sometimes I may not be able to fit you in that day. I have to fit you in another day. But that's because that's when you have mass recruiting. So as much as possible, try to not miss calls. Some employers are not very patient. They just trying to get their positions filled. Do not put the person on a long hold. If you have to put the person on a hold when they call, ask. So if it cannot be avoided, ask the person, may I put you on hold for a few minutes? And you could step away if you have to go to a quiet area to just be able to hear the content of the call. As I said this already, do not answer unprofessionally always expect a call from a prospective employer. When someone is talking to you on the phone, I mean, it's normal phone etiquette. Do not eat or drink while the person is talking to you. If you are eating and drinking and you answer the phone, stop, because I mean, they're taking time to call. And that's when your interview really starts, when the minute you get the call. As I said, you don't know who is calling. If it's someone that they recruit especially for the calls, or the person who actually is doing the interview, or your future boss is actually on the phone, so you're not sure. So always try to be professional, right? If you are in a loud area, sometimes you call and you hear some persons in a maxi taxi, tell them in that instance, I will call you back, because if you try to stay on the call, you will miss the important information, right? Do not ask the person to send you an email or WhatsApp message unless they offer to do so. Okay, I just, and that's just a personal thing of mine, not, I don't know how many other people feel about it, but I think if I'm calling you, if I wanted to send an email, I would have sent an email. But some employers, sometimes we offer, okay, I will follow up with an email. Now that I got you on the phone, I'll follow up with an email so you have the details. Okay, so that's before the interview. I know you would have done resume writing yesterday. So just one thing to note on your resume, please make sure and have professional emails. You could create an email on Gmail or Yahoo and make it maybe it's your name. Avoid too many letters and too many dots and exclamation marks and all these things. Try to keep it as professional and as simple as possible, right? Right, so you're now invited to the interview. How do you prepare for the interview? So usually companies call before, like at least a week before. Usually, sometimes people call 2 days before, but it is common practice a person call at least 3 to 5 working days before. And that is to give the employee, the prospective employee, the future employee, an opportunity to prepare as well. So take the opportunity once you have a few days in advance. And sometimes if you don't have it, try to make the time, but always prepare for your interview. If you have been going to 15, 20 interviews and don't have any luck, I still advise go prepared for every interview. Every interview is a new experience. So the first thing to remember is to do your research. Get to know the company, understand their vision, their mission, their corporate values, their executive team. Most company websites have this type of information. Look at your core business. When I say core business, I'm talking about what are they doing to make money? Understand the business. Because you have persons sometimes maybe in the IT field or HR field like myself, or there maybe accounting, auditing, all these fields. Sometimes we can support companies in any sector. So when I say sector, oil and gas sector, we could go in the banking sector, we could go and work for the government. There are many of the jobs or study we have done, you can go into many different sectors. So get to know the company and the actual the structure of the company and the core business that they're in. And it will suit you when you're actually in the interview. So your questions and the questions can be answered based on the relevance in terms of the company and then your knowledge. That's what you're trying to do in an interview, matching your skills to what the company wants. And that's the purpose of doing research. The next thing is you'll want to look at the job. The job itself, when I say the job, I'm talking about the job description. And sometimes, and I'm sure some persons may ask, you may not have the job description before, but let's look firstly at if you have a job description, you may have gotten from our website, you may have gotten from the newspapers, whatever source. And be sure to go through the content of the job description. The job description will give you a general idea of the roles and responsibilities, and sometimes may even give you an idea of how many persons are in your, if you have persons reporting to you, how many persons in the team, it may give an idea of that. And then the type of interrelationship you may have to collaborate with other departments. So be familiar with the job, the main duties of the job. Research some of the things. So You may see lines in the job description may sound very foreign to you. We all have access to the internet. Use it, Google it, and see what these terms mean. Be familiar with the core terms, because sometimes they may be calling it something, they may term it one way and you know it, but you just don't call it whatever they have coined it in their particular company, right? And sometimes I have seen where persons will come to the job interview and be like, what's the job I'm looking for? Again, we're going back to the call. This is where you're asking sometimes, what is the jobs? Because you send out applications, sometimes generally, they don't know the job. So make sure and ask the person before you come to the interview, what is the actual job? I mean, most times you know which job you're applying for, but I know we have a mixture of students, and that's why I try to address each category of student. So you're applying for maybe entry-level jobs. As soon as you finish COSTAATT, you're just sending out a number of resumes. And in sending out the resumes, you may ask for any position. And, you know, I always tell people, try to be specific. When you ask for any position, tell us what department you have an interest in if you don't know the actual positions. And be very familiar with the kind of jobs you would have applied for. So if you don't remember, or you don't, or try to remember, but if you don't, ask what position, so you can properly prepare for it. So if you don't have a job description, but you applied for example, an audit assistant job, and the company that called is a company in a shipping industry. Now, an audit assistant in a shipping industry is very different from an audit assistant from a company like PricewaterhouseCoopers, right? And that is why you have to do your research. The core functions of these jobs in a different industry means different things. They may call it the same thing, but it means different things, okay? Then we have the third category I have here in doing research, social media. We all on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever it is. And a lot of these companies, LinkedIn, and if you are not a member or have joined LinkedIn, I would advise that you use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a professional network, and I found it very useful. So I'm asking that, and a lot of companies use it to post some of their stories and their corporate social responsibilities, new projects. They use it for marketing. So I'm asking students to, and job seekers to use social media for good. Look, do your research using the social media. And because that's the reason companies use it as well, to get themselves out there. If you don't have Instagram account and you don't believe in Facebook, because I know some people don't believe in Facebook and Instagram, get an account. You don't have to use it for yourself. You can just use it for research purposes, because you are looking for a job. You want to be in the know. And to be honest, a lot of things, a lot of information I find readily available is in Instagram. Only in the number of media things we have these days, media press releases and all these things. Facebook is the thing that comes up on my phone, and that's how we know what's happening. So it's a very useful tool once you know how to use it to your benefit. Location, that's another thing. Be very familiar with the area of or location. For some of us who drive, I will have access to a car. If you are going to a face-to-face interview, go the day before, take a drive the day before, so you are familiar with the building and the area in which you are going. So that kind of relieves you from some level of anxiety and being lost on the day and unfamiliar with your surroundings. And we have all these lovely tools as well, Waze and Google Map and all these things. So you can use those tools as well to help you find the exact location. In your research as well, you want to make sure and have copies of your CV and copies of your certificates to be sure. So all this is before the interview. So have copies of your CV and your certificates and be ready to present it. A few times I've been in interviews where maybe if we ask for a copy of the CV, persons look at us with a blank stare. Well, I have it on my phone. No, we ask that you have to remember, you your portfolio, you are the product or service that you are trying to market and sell in this case. And always be ready to have information about you and your experiences, your qualifications, and all certificates must be in one. So whenever you're going to an interview, put things they will ask for, like copies of your ID. Some people may still ask for birth certificate, but that's usually for permanent employment. When we come to benefits and all those things, that's the reason why they ask for birth certificate, 2 forms of ID, and your certificates in terms of your school certificates, CXC, A levels, degrees, and any kind of short courses you have done. Now, some persons go to do the thorough of courses and sewing and horseback riding, and while those things are sometimes nice to have, you don't want to give too much of unnecessary information as well to the employer in your portfolio. All right. And the other thing in terms of what you're doing research about is the panel. Sometimes interviewers, before the interview, they share the panel. You know, they say, well, the panel is the CEO, Mr. Whatever. Then we have the chief financial officer. Then we have the HR manager, and they may go down the line. And that's where research come in when you're looking at the company as well. And knowing the panel and doing research on it and seeing what they are passionate about and what they have an interest in terms of their contribution to the company. So you get a better feel of the company in terms of what kind of candidate they are looking for. Okay, we still before the interview. We are not at the interview as yet. So the day before the interview, I mean, this is very an obvious point. Prepare your outfits before. If you have and you can have a backup outfit just in case, make sure your clothes fits properly in terms of and make sure you are comfortable in it. With COVID, we all put on a few pounds. So sometimes, you know, you gotta make sure the ideal outfit you've been using all the time, that it still fits the way it was intended to fit and look very professional. Rehearse questions based on the job. So again, your research, you go and look at questions and being familiar with the job description. In the job description, you'll have like competencies. So you might see, when you read each line, you might say, okay, what are they asking here? They're asking, I must be able to collaborate with other persons. So that's teamwork. You look at something else, you say, okay, must be able to liaise with external suppliers. Now, that is good communication skills, written and oral. So then you look for questions based on these kind of competencies. And rehearse the questions based on the job before the interview. And if you don't have anybody to rehearse with yourself. Write it out if you have the time, or I wouldn't say write it out too much. I would try to say just prepare your points, but try to experience speaking it out loud. Speak to yourself in the mirror. Say it out loud so it gives you the confidence and the familiarity with to answering a question and collecting your thoughts into one full sentence. Again, this might sound obvious. Look at your hair and your body and make sure, do research on what works best, because different industry may require different, may be accepting to different looks. So like for the men, try to take a haircut before and make sure you are well groomed. For ladies too, in terms of your hairstyle, try to choose an appropriate hairstyle for the particular industry. Now, I mean, with equal opportunities, and all employers that I've worked with always talk about equal opportunity, but be sure to look at the profession that you are entering and then do research on what works best. Because if you're going to a design company or a magazine, their expectations may be different. And again, with the research on the company and what kind of things that they have, what kind of activities they're engaged in, you can get an idea as well what works best. Go to sleep early. I know sometimes we might get very nervous the day before the interview, but I'm urging persons that no matter what, try and go to bed very early so you're well rested and you're not tired and you're not, are not able to focus on the day of the interview. Now, some of us have children to drop off and other commitments on morning sometimes. If you can make other arrangements for that so that the children can be taken care of and you get to your interview on time. Because the main thing, you want to be there on time because they have a schedule and you don't want to throw off the entire day. All right. So make the arrangements as best as you can. If it's online, be sure that all systems are working. And that was very funny when I said that because before you all came on, Jason and I were chatting, and normally I always have a full supply of electricity, and it went down, and then obviously my internet connection went down, but I had a backup plan, and that's why I have it here. I have a backup plan in case internet doesn't work. I made sure my one of my phones is charged and make sure that is connected. And I also printed my script, my entire script, my notes as well, so just in case. So always be prepared. So if it is online, having no internet, I mean, it happens, I know, but always have a backup plan. Did I? But very good. Right. So we reached the day of the interview. The actual day of interview. So I'm looking at face-to-face and I'm looking at online. So face-to-face, make sure I wake up early, check your clothes, save some the preparation from the day before. Try to relax. And one strategy, if some people in the room familiar with mindfulness and breathing techniques and meditation, one simple way to remain relaxed is just to kind of count and then look at your, pay attention to your breathing and just try to relax, because you being nervous, your brain wouldn't work properly. I mean, it's scientifically proven. I'm sure we have science students in here too will be able to explain that better. When you're nervous and that emotion that sometimes take over the way you think. So you want to relax, you want to get there on time. Sometimes they have forms to fill out, so make sure and check to have a pen available and all these things. So you'll be digging and looking for things when you get in their lobby, because the interview starts since you got the call. So when you walk in, sometimes you may pass the person on the panel and you may not know. So always be, when you walk into the lobby, always be pleasant with everybody. Although you are running late, you stay relaxed, because you don't know who you'll be interacting with at that time. If it's online, make sure and log on at least 10 minutes before. If you're using your phone, that's why I have keep the device steady. If you're using the phone, don't keep shifting the phone from side to side, keep it stable. Upper body of the camera, so that's more or less like how I am here. Not have it where you're only seeing part of your face, or you're too far away where you see the entire body. They need to hear you, and they need to see at least the upper part of your body. Use a solid background. So some of these applications does not give you the opportunity to change your background. So usually I do a blue, but with Zoom, I don't have a version where you can do all kind of fancy thing. And the fancy thing I can do is just some outer space thing and some other thing that doesn't work clearly if you don't have a green background. Again, the IT people will be able to help us with that. But try to use a solid background, because even the background with the space and the beach and all those things, that I think is absolutely nonsense and unprofessional. Sometimes when you move, you go in and out of the picture. So you don't want that during an interview. So the best bet is try to clear, if it's home, clear space and make sure it's a comfortable space and have a solid background. Always turn your camera on unless the persons at the interview panel say, well, we're keeping cameras off, right? And make sure you are comfortable. And that goes to in terms of the interview. If you're face-to-face student, try to make sure you are comfortable, because you don't want the entire interview to be focused on, oh gosh, I can't sit properly, or something pressing against your back or something. So try to be comfortable. So finally, we are at the interview stage. We are at the interview. So I'm going to do some tips, and then I'm going to do into some questions. That how you can, what you're looking for in the interview itself. So the tips: enter the room with a soft smile. Try not to be too serious. You know, sometimes you want to be so professional. We put on a very, very, I don't know what the word, but sometimes a too serious of a face. And it gives the panelists an interpretation of you from the minute you're walking. Because remember, since you got the call, interview start, you walk in the lobby, you walk in the room, your body language, everything is being noticed at all times. Walk in with confidence. Don't be cocky. Walk in with confidence. So that means to maintain eye contact. Not when you're walking, you're looking on the ground, you're looking over. Don't look up, because a lot of people like to look up. I don't know what. Sometimes the ceiling may have the answer. But try to make eye contact with the person who are in the room. Wait to be asked to be seated. Don't just pull a chair and say, I'm going to assume that's where you are sitting. Different companies have different protocol. They have different expectations. People have different styles. So you just kind of wait and see, basically, because it's their space that you are being invited into. If COVID-19 regulations allow it, I mean, now we may not shake hands and so on because of all the restrictions. But if we ever come back to a time when you have to shake hands, make sure you have a solid handshake. But in the event of that, in the absence of that, rather, acknowledge the person. So if you have a panelist and they're being introduced, don't look at the person only who's speaking to you. So they said, usually the HR person will introduce. So when you say to my far right, we have the CEO, Mr. X. You look at him, you smile, and you acknowledge that this is the person. Even sometimes they may be writing and they're ignoring you. That's not, you don't need to not watch them if they're ignoring you. Still look and acknowledge. So you make the eye contact with every person in the panel. When you are seated, make sure you're comfortable. You might say, well, I don't want to tell them nothing, because if I'm uncomfortable, what I will say. But again, you don't want your entire interview be focused on, am I going to topple over? Is the chair going to break? If you're not comfortable, say something. They will change it and so on, right? Sometimes you may want to ask for water before, just in case. You have to know yourself. If you think you can go ahead and talk for a whole hour or how long the interview is and not want water, because you don't want to be in the middle of the interview where your throat becomes so dry and you start coughing. You try to cater for these things before. So most times they will ask if you want something, you may just ask for water, that's it. Don't go and ask for no juice and all those things. You don't know if the people have any juice, right? There's another thing that some people may not agree with me on, but I think it's a good idea to always have a pen and paper available. So when you sit in front of the panelists, you have your portfolio in front of you in case they ask for it, and you can have a notepad and a pen or a pencil. Because sometimes they may ask a question, or you may want to remember somebody's name, even if especially if it's a big panel, you may just want to write the person's name and their position. Because if during the interview they ask a question and you want to refer to a previous part of the discussion, you don't want to say the man with the pink shirt there, or the man over there, or the lady over there. You want to be very professional. Mr. So-and-so indicated, right? So those are the little jottings. I'm not telling you to sit and take notes in the interview. That is not what the interview is for. Just take pertinent information that you think you need to jot down quickly. And do not address persons by their first names unless they tell you to call. Well, call me Carl, right? Unless they say that, do not think that you can. Okay, I think we're doing okay for time. Yes. During the interview now, so we got the call, we came to the location, we walk in, we fill out the forms, we walk in, we ask to be seated. Now, you're the hot seat now, right? A lot of interviewers, again, some people don't make an effort to make persons comfortable because they're just doing this 115 times in a day. So they are not doing that for them. They're just trying to find the best candidates. So it's up to you to kind of control. It's obvious that we all get nervous. So try to control the breathing, try to control the thoughts. Don't think about what I will eat later. Don't think about your breakfast. And that's the next thing I didn't mention. Make sure and eat and drink before so you don't have another additional thing to worry about at the interview. Right? So tell us, so first question. A lot of people love this question. Tell us about yourself. Right? I know Jason said don't be not engaging, so keep your questions at the end, right? This is just to engage you a little bit. What do you think the employer wants to know? These are the questions you will ask yourself when they ask you, tell us about yourself. Do you think they want to know how many dogs you have? Do you think they want to know how many siblings? Do you think they want to know where you grew up? Do you think they want a review of your CV? Do you think they want to know if you use paint? If you use drag race? What do you think they want to know? So that's the first thing you have to ascertain. And this comes from your research, right? Sometimes you may never know if you answer the question right or wrong. But what I need you all to do is this. The question is to what do you really want in this question? The question is for you to paint a picture of you. It is really designed to give you to give an idea of how flexible and well-rounded you are. So different recruiters may look for different things. I remember one time we were recruiting for a call center. Now, this call center was expanding. It was supporting the entire Caribbean. And the senior manager, a lovely young man, he used to always tell me, whenever he always want to ask this question, no problem. His name was Stuart. Stuart will say, and he tells them, tell me about yourself, but I don't want to hear, I read your resume. I don't want to hear nothing in your resume. Tell me about you. And what Stuart wanted to hear what you do in your spare time, like how do you interact with other people, because he's recruiting for a call center, which is you're calling people to tell them about products, one. Two, persons who maybe own the company, so it's like collectors. So you want persons to be able to have like diversity. So that's why it's important to understand the job and the company. And I remember one candidate said, well, I now come out of school and all I do is play video games all day. Stuart hired him. Why Stuart hired him? Because Stuart told me playing video games, and that was in this context, you become a critical thinker because the particular game, I don't remember the game that the person was playing, required you to be thinking on your feet and looking at different scenarios and working it out. He said, that's the kind of person on my team, a critical thinker. So that is why you have to, and it's difficult sometimes to answer the question correctly. So that's why, again, I come back to your research, the type of job you're looking for. And that is how you will base this question. So you want to organize your ideas and you choose what you want to highlight. If you want to highlight that you are flexible or a team player or a sportsman, and I have this example here with, just think about what you want to share. You want to share your recent graduate of COSTAATT. We all know that because we read your resume. But sometimes you're so proud of it, which is great. You need to mention it just in case somebody didn't read it, you feel. You want to make sure they know that you are going to COSTAATT or have a degree from COSTAATT. And you might say, one of the things I really enjoyed most is that the number of courses we had to do and the different type of courses we had to do. And you talk about the courses and how you'll be able to flex and be able to adapt from being a science student to doing a comparative religion course, to doing sociology. So it was, and talk about your experience like that, and that will come up. Will certain characteristics of you will come up. All right, I'm moving on to the next question, the next pertinent question. So I kind of focus the question on the kind of difficult question, what persons would have said is difficult for them. Another question is that we always ask the question, why should we hire you? Now, I particularly don't like this question because whatever you say, based on my score sheet or my competencies, I know if you're going to do a good job or not. And why should we hire you? You have to look as the interviewee where the question comes. If the question comes at the end, that's okay, but sometimes they come at the beginning. Usually questions come, a question like this comes at the end. But if it comes at the beginning, what they want to do is they want you to highlight your main strengths. For example, you'd say, I'm a very fast learner and I can adapt to change quickly. And based on your job description, because you did your research on your job description, I have most of the technical skills you're looking for. And it said, based on your job description, some of the behavioral competencies and behavioral competencies are things like communication, things like things like being able to be flexible, being able to work in teams. These are soft skills, or being able to resolve conflicts, conflict resolution. That's another core competency that people look for these days in jobs. We want to have persons who are resilient. And these are the kind of things they are looking for. If the question comes at the end, however, they want to know, based on all you have discussed in the entire interview, how now that what you have can benefit us. They want to see if you were listening, first of all, in terms of everything we said, in terms of the company values and all those things before. What now can you offer us? And sometimes this question is a tiebreaker question. Huh? So you'll be very careful, because when it comes to the end, it sounds very casual, but it's a tiebreaker question. So be very careful. Look at the core values and use that in your answer alongside the main competence of the job. So as I said, pay attention to what was discussed in the interview and frame your answer according to that. Next question, why did you apply for this job? Well, don't ever say, well, I was just looking for a job and I apply everywhere, right? Prospective employers don't want to hear that. While that may be true, we want to know why you want to work here, because we want you to be a valuable addition to the company. So I'm interested in joining this company because, and this is again where research comes in. On social media, I noticed that you all do this. You all involved in these projects where you are helping the needy during COVID-19. These are things you all did for the country. I really want to be part of this, right? This kind of company. Also, you may want to refer to the job alongside. You look at the JD. You look at some of the technical skills. So I might say, this is the areas that I've studied and I really want to develop this area as well, okay? So I have a quick example there. I noticed there's a research and development part in cybersecurity. And this field, as we all know, cybersecurity is growing, especially now with everything online. And based on the JD, it seemed to be focused on, being one step ahead. And I think that, this is really what excites me. So kind of make it very relevant. And let's have to speed up a little bit because I'm looking at the time, all right? So basically, look at the question and try to link it back to the company, job description, and you individually. Next question, why do you want to leave your last job? The job that's why you're looking for a job. If that is considering you're working, don't be negative. Do not, well, if I tell you, my boss, don't ever do that. So even if it is, if I tell you I'm a boss, don't ever do that, right? Make the reasons very realistic. So you might say, I am looking, right now where I'm working, they have set structure in place. And while I'm good at working with structure, I want to be part of a company that builds from scratch. So that's what I'm looking for, like maybe a smaller company. So I'll be able to, to draft policies and be able to build the company. Or you might say that there's some kind of restructuring and based on the LIFO system, you think that your job may be cut, or if your job is cut, if your job is not cut, then maybe there will not be promotional opportunities years later. So why do you want to work here? Again, similar to one of the questions we highlighted before. Make sure and look at the core values. I'm not sure if people are familiar with I Am Movement. That is a NGO in Trinidad that focus on environmental issues. Say, talk about that. I have an interest in that, and I really want to work for your company. So if, for example, you try to make it very, very specific, right? Next question. Right. So the questions so far were very focused on you, the questions they ask about you. But sometimes they ask questions about if we ask a member of your team or group to describe you, what you will say. Say, don't ever say, them are well bad to me. Do not say things like that. Although it may be true, do not say things like that. Be very realistic. And I have a little acronym. You'll see if you do research, you'll see the people call it STAR and SAR, all kind of thing. My acronym is a little bit different because you want to state your situation, explain what is happening. Then, for example, so if I ask my team about me, my team personally will say, I just get the things done. I'm a problem solver, right? And so that is the scenario. And so you want to say, okay, well, you need to describe it. By just saying that is not enough. Why would they say you're a problem solver? So I gave the example here of a COSTAATT student again. So we were working on this project. So it's describing the situation. So we're working on a project. The company that we're supposed to interview pulled out and said we cannot use the information anymore. So you have to find a new company. So as a situation, the action you take, the action you took at the time was that you went to the lecturer or you call your contacts you had. So that's the action. Was the result, the project was done on time and was able to meet the objectives. But was the impact? And that's one thing you have to remember. The impact is that everybody get good grades in the end. So whenever we describing and answering questions, like technical, when I say technical questions is very specific. Describe the situation, say what action is taken, look at the outcome, and then look at the impact. So you might have the result, but what's the real impact? We get it done, but what's the impact by getting it done? We save X amount of dollars, right? So keep that in mind when you're answering these type of questions. The next question is, tell me a time when you had a disagreement with another team member. Now, this question is specifically about conflict resolution. Now, and you all could do research on this, there's something called effective confrontation. And I learned this later in my career where conflict is not necessarily bad. And a lot of organizations is looking for persons who deal with conflict and confrontation. And conflict is not a bad thing. You will always have disagreement in an organization, and we come to understand that. It's just how people deal with it. Is it that you're going to avoid it altogether, or you're going to deal with it? So in a question like this, do not ever say, well, I don't have no disagreement with nobody, I get along with everybody. While that maybe have some truth to it, it sends a message that you avoid conflict. So what do you really want in this question is, as I said, for you to be able to resolve the conflict. Again, explain the situation. Well, there was a time when, and I'll give you an example. There was a time when I had to work, I'm an HR, I have to work with an HSE specialist. Most times that's how it works, right? The person was a very difficult person. She had a lot of inferiorities or whatever. Don't say those things. Just say you were able to work with an HSC person. Their perspective were very different from yours, just different from what I just said. And then you had a conversation with her. You came up with outcomes in terms of projects and then outcomes, and we were able to execute the projects on time. That's a true story, right? You had some level of agreement, okay? So make it very believable. Make don't make it very hypothetical at all. Could they, the panelists will know, could they do, a lot of them do a number of interviews, so they'll be able to understand person's behavior. Tell us a time when you were given a task that you did not agree with. Again, this deals with authority and flexibility and how well you deal with that, and also integrity. Sometimes the question can be a trick question, meaning that you want to see if something is going wrong that is unethical or immoral or even illegal, how you're going to deal with it. Right? So sometimes, again, describe a situation. To think, this is where preparation comes in. These type of questions, think about responses. You might say this never happened, but it did. Think back about it, you're a student. Think back as your first job, even if you were an intern somewhere. Think about the experiences you had there. All right. And you must be able to come up with these situations. Now, at the end of the interview, you want to ask useful questions, right? Always ask questions. Sometimes you might say, well, they tell me everything, so I don't need to ask any questions. But it shows interest, it shows genuineness, or it doesn't be like, well, interview over. Yes, it's over, but it's not really over until you leave, right? So ask useful questions. Don't ask, when do I start? Over enthusiasm, which is great, but you may want to say it, but don't. You might say, can you please advise on the next step of the process? So this is the interview, what's the next step? And they might say, we have an assessment center, so you will get feedback by X, Y, and Z. Another thing, you may want to ask questions about the company. Some companies share information at first, at the beginning of the interview, I meant, but some other companies may not. So you may want to ask question at this time. And the example I have here, how many persons are in, for example, if you're interviewing for the audit team. Now, if you're working in the IT team, you know, and you want to know what's in the audit team, right? This is an example. How many persons in the audit team? Can you explain the structure? So they may, and you may want to ask, what do you think is the core culture? Might be a sensitive question, but know how you're phrasing it. So they may describe, and by you asking the core culture, you are also trying to understand if you will fit in there as well. Huh? Maybe they have reporting standards for the job. Ask, those are the kind of questions you want to ask. So if you want, you might say, okay, if we start, what is the kind of reports are required? Is it monthly, weekly, annually? What type of reports? Is there quality standards that you're working with? What's the main software used? So if you're interviewing for a payroll position, you want to know what kind of software they're using. So you'll know if you have to do research before and so on. And the last thing we have to look at, and I know, and Jason, if you allow me, I can stay on to answer the questions, right? It's fine.
Stay for 10 minutes after.
Okay, good. So I can stay on the time. And after the interview, there's some tips. Make sure when you get up, put back the chair in place, thank everyone. You may want to send a thank you email. Do not follow up on calling people every day after. Most organizations usually give feedback. If nothing is communicated, just send a thank you note. And calling incessantly gives the wrong message as well. It might be, you might say, well, I'm interested, but it does not. Okay, so that, I think based on that, I think people are not ready for the next interview. We need 2 hours, Jason, to be very comprehensive. Thank you all for listening, and I'm ready for questions. You can put on your camera and you can have a chat, so put it in any chat room if you want.
Yes, Ms. Rollins.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Ms. Ramjatan, you mentioned, Ms. Ramjatan, sorry, you mentioned that you can politely ask for water or request water if it is offered. Is it tacky for you to, you know, bring, you know, some people bring their have their bottle of water in their purse? Is it tacky? If you need water during the interview, you can ask if you can take a sip of, you know, your water.
Right, so that's a very good question. Personally, I would say yes, but I mean, water is essential. So make sure and have it in your bag, because some companies may not have water available because of the location or whatever reason. But I think it's a reasonable request. So, because sometimes you're talking and you just start a cough, or you don't want that to happen in the middle of an interview, and then your focus get drifted as well. Now, if they don't have water, that's okay. And if you need the water during the interview, just ask politely, you know, I have some water. Do you mind if I drink some water? Now, if you're taking your own water and they don't have water available, don't have no scratch up bottle at the same time. Huh? Have a nice little container. Don't have some people use the blue water bottle a few times. Don't do things like that. You know, have a little neat something. And
All right.
Thank you very much.
Not the 1 liter that everybody's walking the gym with either.
All right, Miss Francis has a question. Thank you, Mariela. Thank you. Miss
Hi.
Francis?
You talk about answering phone call. I wonder if this seem unprofessional. Sometimes you're sleeping and someone called and you answer the phone. Is it give it a bad impression?
Yes, so I'll answer that. Yes, it gives a bad impression because everybody sleeps, everybody takes their naps, and that's okay. But even in my current job, we have shifts running 24 hours, and persons will call my phone sometimes because they have an issue, and they know I'm sleeping, but I would never wake up and be like, hello. You know, I wake up because I know it's a work call. So I would wake up and try to sound like I'm not asleep. So, you know, answer professionally, hello, good morning, or hello, good afternoon. So yes, but I many times we call on people answer and you know they're sleeping. But especially if it's in the middle of the day, try to, because remember I said you're looking for a job. So you always have to be ready for that call. I'm not saying don't sleep during the day, but if you are sleeping, you get the call, wake up and take the call as fresh as you can.
Thank you.
I'm seeing a question here in the group chat that asks, how do you answer the salary expectation question?
Yes, thanks. I just opened the chat. So yes, so Ms. Pierre, it's situation. So you're describing the situation. So I had an example, I think for one of the questions. So like if they ask, I think it was something with the course. Anyway, you describe the situation. So if they ask about if you were ever placed in a situation where your boss gave you an instruction, for example, and you did not agree with it, you describe the situation very briefly, right? So there was a policy that was being rolled out. I didn't agree with it because I think there was not enough consultation. So that's a situation. And then what you do as a result from that situation? Well, I did not agree with it. I was expected to relate it to my team. But before I related to my team, I went back to my boss and asked for further clarification and discussed the point that I was not comfortable with. So that's your action. What happened, the result? What was the outcome of the result? The result is basically your boss was able to explain and you clarify the scenarios, or you still was not comfortable, but the expectation was that you communicate. And the impact is, was the policy successful or was it not successful based on your reservations? That's the impact of your actions. I hope, Ms. Pierre, that cleared up. You just give me feedback if you need further clarification. Jason, what's the next question?
Let's take Shanika. We have Shanika with her hand up, and then I will read the next question. Shanika Bruce.
Hi, good day. Good evening, Ms. Ramjatan. I just want to find out, like, how would I answer a question with regards to a previous employer I was employed with, right? A previous agency. So I'm reapplying, in the process of reapplying, but if they ask the question, why should we rehire you? What should I say?
Okay, so I'm trying to understand the question. So you're working with an agency and they would post you at a particular location and now you're looking for another opportunity with them. Or is it that you were employed with them as a core employer?
I was employed with them as a contract I was under a contract, but my contract ended.
And they
Right?
want to hire you in their organization.
Yes, and I reapplied at their organization after a year.
I think I understand. So you're working on a contract, and so okay. So I will give you a personal scenario. I was working at Massey before I joined this current job, but Massey, they always laugh at me because when I was leaving, it was like, oh, we'll see you in 2 years or 3 years. I was like, no, I'm not coming back. And that's one of the questions. Why should they rehire me? And you look at your traits. What did you contribute to the organization? So were you part of any kind of team building initiatives, like simple things you might take for granted, like today's Diwali. I have persons in my current organization who will always be pushing the rest of the team to dress up and take pictures and send it to us. So those are, you want to say things that you did, like you foster teamwork, for example. Things you have to focus on, remember the things you did. If you did nothing, well, then you have to say, well, you were a great employee, but find traits or positive things that you would have contributed to within the organization and try to focus on those things. Yeah.
All right. The question I was asked in the chat is, how do I answer the question when asked about salary expectations?
Okay, so that is a trick question as well, right? To an extent, and I did not mention it before, but I'm glad it came up. Do not ever ask what is the salary, because all organizations have a range in which they operate. Some organizations may share the salary because they're under collective agreement and those kind of things, and that may be open information. But if you ask, be realistic to yourself and to the organization. Think about your experience. So if, again, your research comes in very, very handy here, look at other types of jobs. Now, if there's an entry-level job, don't go and be asking the people, well, I will take a 25,000. You don't want to do that, right? Just remember when we just finished UE, we're looking for big money too.
That's correct.
Right. So it don't work like that, right? So do some research, look at entry-level jobs. Now, don't sell yourself short at the same time, huh? Because you might say, we might work out your expenses and say, okay, I could take 5,000. But if it's a technical job, you have to look at the ranges. Technical jobs, I think, entry level now, I think goes like between 7 and 10,000, I think, entry level with a little bit of experience and technical jobs. That's what I think. But you do your research and look at what the industry is paying and ask based on that, but do not sell yourself short. And usually the company would say, well, this is our salary range, or sometimes they may say, look at your expenses and just don't be unrealistic. But if they ask you and don't say, well, anything you'll offer, because that is not fair as well, because they are working with a budget. All jobs have a budget, so they know the range in which they're working with. And I don't like asking candidates that question, because personally I find it's an unfair question, because you as the employer know your budget you're working with. What we do sometimes, we put it in the application form, and the application form will have it. So try to always fill it out there. So normally they wouldn't ask. And I mean, if you meet recruiters like me and the teams that I've worked with, we were very upfront with people. We're like, well, you put 10,000, but we only offer 7,000. We're very upfront. Sometimes too in jobs, because of the type of jobs we tell people the salary upfront. So then they decide at that point if they want to come or not. Right? But not all persons are so forward. I just find it's a waste of my time when I come and you tell me how much money I pay. I pay and just say, no, I can't do that. So that's why I usually sometimes share if I can before. Jason, I seen Matthias hand is up.
Yes. What will happen if, say, you pass through the interview and everything, but you don't get a call, and when you go to the company, your name just suddenly disappear from on the computers everywhere? And then when you ask somebody high up that, you went through the trials, all the extra classes yes give you during the interview, and they say your name is not here. But when you tell them and they say they'll call you back, and an hour later they say they found your name, but it was wiped off and somebody write some people's name on top of your name. What will happen then if it have no records of you?
Well, Ms. Matias, that sounds like a very personal issue. One, I
Not
never
really
heard of.
personal.
Sorry?
It's not really personal. It's somebody I know went through that and they was wondering what to do.
I was saying it sounds like a very personal issue, whether it's to you, but it sounds like a very specific issue, I should say. That you have to look at the organization, right? Everywhere I work, that never happened, right? That's very strange to be, first of all. Secondly, look at the type of organization it is, and if there is a reporting structure. So usually they have, like if it's a government agency, for example, there's an office of the ombudsman. Right, so I thought so. That's why I said that. There's the office of the ombudsman that you can access, and you can put a complaint through the office of the ombudsman.
Okay, then, thank you.
Welcome.
Somebody's asked. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm seeing if you have multiple jobs, is that the next question?
Yes.
If you have multiple job offers before the interview, how do address that, as in how do you ask what a company can offer you as opposed to other competitors? Okay, that's a very good question. Now you are okay, how to answer. So is it that you have multiple offers? I'll answer it like multiple offers in terms of actual offers, where you went to interviews. So you have to choose where you want to work. Again, when I was thinking about changing my last job, I had actually 2 offers at the same time. And the first offer came in, I didn't really want it, but I wanted to leave the last job because a number of reasons, I wanted a different opportunity, a different type of industry. And then the offer that I have now came in, and I mean, I accepted the first offer, but I ended up rejecting it because I got the call like the same day. So you have to choose what type of industry you want to work in, and pay and money is not everything. You have to look at the industry and see where you can develop your career in, and the company. So you have to decide on that. I can't make your decision in terms of, but try not to. I mean, you may want to, if Mr. Gobardon, if a company want you so bad, they will like change their offer, because again, they have a range in which to work with. Usually have a range in which to work with. So if you want to work with them, you can tell them, well, I have another opportunity and they're offering more, and you really want to work with them, you can negotiate. I help a few of my colleagues negotiate already in different jobs. One of my best friends actually work in finance all her life, and Jason, that's our common friend.
Yeah.
And she wanted to move from one job to the next, and at the time I was working in finance industry too, so I knew the standard, and I was like, listen, at your level we can negotiate, and I helped her negotiate.
All right.
So yeah, so you can negotiate, but you have to know how to do it professionally and respectfully.
All right. So at this point in time, I know we have lots and lots of questions. However, we must bring to an end this session. We have Ms. Ramjatan's email address on the screen. You can feel free to take it down, and you could send whatever questions you have, or you can always communicate with us at the Career Management Services Department via our Facebook page, via email. Many of you would get emails from me, Jason C. Charles. You can always forward your questions to me, and I will take the time and answer it for you, or you can send the email to Ms. Ramjatan as well, and she can do the same. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Ramjatan for taking time out of a busy schedule to assist us in COSTAATT in this endeavor. And we look forward to continuing a mutually beneficial relationship at the end of the day. I would also like to thank all the participants who took the time to come out to participate in this Career Management Service Initiative. And I encourage and implore you to get to know Career Management Services, get to know us. We are on Facebook, Career Management Services COSTAATT. Like the Facebook page, send us emails if you have any questions. If you need your resume checked, send it to me, Jason C. Charles, and we work with you. If you're looking for a job advisement, etc., please feel free to communicate with us. Again, thank you all for participating, and look forward to having you at our next workshop, which will be next week, Monday, and we'll have one on next week, Wednesday. Those will be starting at 5 p.m. So check out our social media and we will be there. All right. So